So we'll be refuting now the Christian missionaries through Facebook, because that's where the exchange is taking place. But what I really like about these videos, when we Muslims write articles online refuting the Christians, there isn't this exchange. So you don't really hear a counter rebuttal from the Christians, and then so the Muslims can counter that. So what our videos are going to achieve is we're going to go through Facebook. When the Muslim presents the arguments, when the Christians interact with us, we're going to quickly productively refute their arguments. So the two topics today is, and I've already done a video previously to this, you can actually see it in the link, and that goes into more detail into these events. So we'll look at the Christian arguments and then we'll counter them. So the exchange is taking place on Facebook. The two topics today is the Prophet Muhammad beating Ashia. Apparently, he struck Ashia in the chest and he gave her pain. We're going to refute that argument, and also the Quranic argument, where in the Quran in Surah 434, apparently it says to beat women. So let's go directly to Facebook. His name is Adi Suleiman. He's a Christian we're actually interacting with on Facebook. So we'll begin from this actual narration here. As you can see, another Muslim apologist named Mustafa Ahmed, he puts a beautiful hadith in the screen that says, Aisha reports, the Prophet Muhammad did not hit anything with his hands besides the time when he made jihad in the path of Allah. He did not hit a servant, nor a woman, wife, girl, etc. And this is in Al-Tirmidhi 331, hadith number 6. So the Christians are now trying to counter this, and it's a clear, explicit teaching from the Prophet Muhammad. Of course, Aisha herself, this is a woman who's actually testifying that the Prophet Muhammad, her husband, did not ever abuse a woman physically with his hand. And she reports that clear reference there. Even though this hadith is narrated and it's crystal clear, they then try and counter this by going into different types of hadith to misinterpret it. And in this exchange, we're going to show how that's there's a clear refutation to it. But before we do, Adi Suleiman, who's a Christian, he says, well, really? And of course, he's going to talk about Surah 434. And basically, I said to him, yes, absolutely, really, hadith, you will never hear from David Wood. So basically, he follows David Wood's papers, and I'm saying to him, you won't hear this hadith from the David Wood papers. He goes on to say, so you accept this hadith but reject the Quran that permits you to beat women, and the hadith where the same Aisha said Muhammad struck her, and he goes on. But the clear rebuttal here is, you can go to Surah 434. The Arabic word there is idrubune, and idrubune does mean beat. However, when we look into the Quran and we want to interpret it and understand what this Arabic word beat means, it could mean a light beating, And we know this because you need to look at the hadith around the verse that explains the Quran, right? And the hadith actually says that you should not beat women, right? And we can put the references below this video that you should, the Prophet Muhammad said, do not, this is in Muslim and Bukhari and so forth, do not beat women and do not revile them. Okay? And the Prophet Muhammad said also in another hadith, you can find these in Muslim and Abu Dawood and Bukhari and so forth, that the Prophet Muhammad specifically said that if one is to inflict a beating, he should not leave any mark. So how can it be a violent beating? How could this be a harsh beating if it can't leave any mark? And we know that women are very sensitive. So, you could touch a woman on the skin and she'll start going red. You could just touch or whatever, it'll just start going red. And So the hadith actually says, do not even put a mark. Do not even put a mark. So this has more of a symbolic connotation to express your anger. So the scholars have looked at it, and a scholar by the name of Ibn Abbas, he was the companion of the Prophet Muhammad. If anyone can interpret the Quran in the best way, it's Ibn Abbas. He lived and walked with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, he has said that according to Surah 434, this is his interpretation, he says it's not to be a violent beating. Now ask yourself a question. How can a beating be non-violent? Well, it's obviously a tap, right? You should tap your wife. Just like you tap a drum, beat a drum, tap her. And, tell her, shape up, woman. Just to give her the attention that you're upset and angry at her and so forth. So when we look at the context all around the hadith and the context around the Quranic verses, it is crystal clear that we need to accept everything. You bring everything together, and then you can understand what this actually means. So Christians, you have no argument when it comes to that. And as you can see, he hasn't replied, and he has been refuted clearly on that point. We'll now go to the striking, and you'll see the exchange there. Again, the Christian missionary was completely silenced, and we'll just go through it right now. Here it is. There's actually 12 responses. I'll show you the exchange between me and him. So I'll read you his response, and then I'll counter him, God willing. So he basically says, Adi Suleiman, dear Muslims and friends, maybe you'll want to read this hadith again closely. Muhammad did not hit anything with his hands besides this time he made jihad. Does this not imply that Muhammad could hit something with a belt or a stick or a sword or a woman or a girl, boy, when he was in jihad? So basically he's saying, can Muhammad hit a woman if he was in jihad? Because the hadith, when we go to the very beginning, it says that he did not hit any woman except in the cause of jihad, meaning that if he was at war and the enemy combatant consisted of women, then of course it's legitimate to fight that woman. I mean, wouldn't you? If you were an American soldier and a woman dressed up as Taliban came up to you and wanted to blow you up, you're not going to fight her? So I don't know why the Christian would ask such a silly question in regards to that. So that's basically what I said to him in the whole exchange, that of course in this type of circumstance, there will be legitimate fighting, but other than the context of war, the Prophet Muhammad did not lay his hand on women, including his wife. He did not physically beat anyone like that. And the Prophet Muhammad, if he thought that Surah 434 was about beating women, right? There was many incidences where the Prophet had a bit of a fallout with Ashia. Why didn't you smack her and beat her up? But we don't see that. We don't see that at all. If Surah 434 was requesting the Prophet Muhammad to beat women, he could have done that multiple times, but he didn't do that. And Ashia refutes that and explains in the hadith that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, never hit a woman. So we'll go now to the second narration, the second hadith. Basically, Adi Suleiman says, and he's quoting the hadith, obviously, where an instance happened where Aisha radiallahu anha was basically spying on the Prophet Muhammad, and the Prophet repelled her by actually pushing her on her chest. The hadith actually says strike. This is the English interpretation. It says he struck her on the chest. However, this is not a very good English translation. If you go to the Arabic word, lahada, it actually means to push her. And basically, Adi Suleiman says he pushed her. This is a Christian, he's now saying. He pushed her. Let's see what Aisha herself said. He struck me on my chest, which caused me pain, and then said, did you think that Allah and His Apostle would deal unjustly with you? And then he asked me the question. He said, Mr. Musafa Sahin, is pushing and striking the same thing? No, strike was sufficient enough to cause pain. So basically he's saying that the actual physical push actually caused her pain. So this is my response to him. I said, the question of the Prophet striking Aisha and why she felt pain, we explained this was due to the sensitive nature of females, that a slight push can usually cause bruises and even pain for women. Security guards pushing people can also cause pain during crowd control, but this is minimal pain and not major. Even a needle injection from a doctor can cause you pain. Will you say that the doctor assaulted me? So basically that was my response to him. And I've actually asked him a question because he's a Christian and he believes that Jesus created everything, right? And designed everything. And I asked him, now you need to answer a similar question. Why did Jesus, who is a man, who is meant to be God, gave women birth pain? Maybe David Wood didn't prepare you for that one, Adi Suleiman. So, you know, if the Prophet Muhammad pushed and gave someone pain and that disproves him a prophet and it proves that he assaulted women and so forth, your own Jesus assaulted the whole of the female humankind by giving them birth pain. So notice the double standards. Anyway, he basically ignores that. And he says, he responds back by saying, due to the sensitive nature of females, I honestly balk at the excuses Muslims bring up to defend their prophet. The same Muslims will then argue that Aisha was mature at 9 years old, and he's going into other subjects, of course. Muhammad's sexual relation with her, it's a real shame. He basically doesn't really have a response. And my response back to him was, Adi, I find it hilarious. You make something out of nothing. Prophet Muhammad did not intend to give her pain, but that is what happened unintentionally. Aisha knew it wasn't to physically intentionally cause her harm, for why she defended her husband's integrity to say he did not hit any of his wives or women with the intention to harm. The pain she felt due to the push was unintentional to cause her pain, but like I said, you're desperate. Even then, says same Muslims will argue about mental maturity at 9 when it came to the Prophet's marriage. It actually does not matter what age women are. They are all generally sensitive. So bad logic. Of course, I went into him and I said to him, you know, even a 25-year-old woman can feel pain by the prick of a rose prickle. Right? A rose prickle can actually cause even a 25-year-old woman some pain. And then, you know, he wanted to go into other topics, but let's not drag it into other topics. And of course, your Jesus gave women intentional birth pain, yet you ignore Jesus' behavior here. And if he wants to bring up other sexual contexts, Mary was barely 12 to 13 when she actually married a 90-year-old man. This is according to the Christian historical Catholic record. But we don't really need to get into that subject. You know, a Christian, when he gets cornered and he gets refuted, he'll bring up all these other subjects. But the crystal clear point here is this, that they've been completely refuted, both from the hadith, the context of the hadith, from the Quran. And, you know, when they bring up all these nonsensical arguments, oh, she felt pain and so forth, you know, this was all unintentional and minimal. And, you know, you could go visit the doctor and receive an injection, and that will also give you pain. It doesn't mean that you're being harassed by the doctor or assaulted by the doctor. Women are sensitive. And if Aisha knew it was unintentional, if she knew it was intentional, then we could go right back to the hadith where Aisha herself disproves it. She says, the Prophet Muhammad did not hit anything with his hands besides the time when he made jihad. So Aisha herself understood it wasn't an intentional push to cause her pain. So she refutes the Christians by saying the Prophet Muhammad obviously intentionally did not hit or beat up any women. And that's it basically. So that's it. Goodbye and good day.